What's up, YouTube? It's your man Dark Energy coming to you live once more. And in this lesson right here, we're going to go into this book entitled Mummies, Cannibals, and Vampires: The History of Corpse Medicine from the Renaissance to the Victorians. I highly advise you get a piece of paper and a pen to take notes. I have referenced this book in my last two lessons. I've already read the introductory cover, so I don't have to go over that right now. So, we're going to go into the information. Okay? I can't go through it all. So, if I have to make two parts to it, I will. I'm just going to go through different sections so you can see that everything that I've been putting out is coinciding with each other. Okay? So, you got here in chapter 1, it says the Middle Ages to the Civil War. And we're going to go over here to classical and non-Christian uses. Okay, and we're going to go right here to it says that the Roman encyclopedias Pliny the Elder, meanwhile, told in his natural history of how, quote, the blood of gladiators is drunk by epileptics as though it were a draught of life. This caused Pliny himself to shudder with horror. But around 300 AD, a somewhat uncritical summary called Medicina Pliny skewed his initial attitude when it stated simply, quote, human blood is also effective against epilepsy. Okay, now we're going to go over here. And it says here that some of what we are told about very early use of the human body derives from the Renaissance authors. The physician Thomas Motif was unequivocally hostile to classical corpse therapies. He said, yeah, in Rome, the seat and nurse of all inhumanity, physicians did prescribe their patients with bloods of wrestlers, causing them to suck it warm, breathing and spinning out of their veins, drawing into their corrupt bodies a sound man's life, and sucking that in with both lips, which a dog is not suffered to lick with his tongue. At the same time, he also reveals other cannibalistic treatments. They were not ashamed, he adds, to prescribe them a meat made of man's marrow and infant brains. The Grecians, meanwhile, were as bold and impious as the Romans, tasting of every inward and outward part of man's body, not leaving the nails unprosecuted. Let Democritus dream and comment that some diseases are best cured with anointing the blood of strangers and malefactors, others with the blood of our friends and kinfolks. Let Miletus cure sore eyes with man's gouts, Artemon the falling sickness with dead man's skulls, Antheus convulsions with pills made of dead man's brains, Apollonius bad gums with dead man's teeth. Now we're going to go over here to right here, and it says here that this has been going on for a long time. Okay, you have the Middle Ages, the alchemy of blood. All right, I'm just going through different sections because you got to get the book for yourself to read this. You know what I'm saying? I can't spoon feed you everything. So, like here, there's a man named Jacobus of Toledo, was talking about alchemy, right? And they was talking about the four elements. He says the four elements, as you have learned and know by the rules of alchemy, and diligently stop each element apart, that no air breath forth. This water of blood, the letter claimed, had powers against all sickness. It was especially effective against restoring the spiritual members, presumably the liver, heart, and brain, then thought to contain a vaporous spirit of blood and air. Okay, so he's talking about alchemy. Okay, now we're gonna go over here. I want to read this to you. Yeah, mummies becomes medicine. I'm gonna go right here, and it says that a man named Carl Danefeld, right? Carl Danefeld tells us mummy started to be used to refer to a pitch-like substance produced in Egyptian corpses by the arts of mummification. Compare, for example, it says, quote, the substance found in the land where bodies are buried with alloys by which the liquid of the dead mixed with the alloys is transformed, and it is similar to marine pitch. Again, come the 12th century, we hear of the mummia of the sculptures as a substance made of alloys and myrrh mixed with the liquid of the human body. Drop down here, it says, surviving evidence suggests that there was not a particularly strong European demand for Egyptian mummy until the 15th century. The influential surgeon Lefranc of Milan, 1250 to 1306, cited a medicine for broken bones, which contained, among other things, gum, Arabic, and mummy. And the Italian physician Pandolfus notes the use of human skulls in the 15th century. Now, we all know about melanin being worth $460 per gram, right? But we're gonna go back even further than that. So it says here that in the 13th century, the Baghdad physician Abdi Alatif had been able to purchase, quote, 3 heads filled with mummy for half a dirham, an amount which he explicitly describes as a trifle. Come 1424, certain merchants were engaged in a more systematic trade, plundering the tombs. Now I want you to go back and watch my video on the unknown catacombs of Rome, part 2. And you're going to see how the grave robbers went in the tombs and started pulling out the cadavers. Cadavers means bodies. And doing horrible things to their bodies. So it says, come 1424, certain merchants were engaged in a more systematic trade, plundering the tombs to an extent which proved reckless. The authorities in Cairo discovered persons who had amassed a considerable number of cadavers, and who confessed under torture that they were removing bodies from the tombs, boiling them in hot water, and collecting the oil which rose to the surface. This was sold to the Europeans for 25 gold pieces per hundredweight. The men were in prison. A hundredweight was then 112 pounds, or 8 stone. And although 3 heads were unlikely to weigh more than about 2 stone, we can clearly see that prices rose sharply between the time of Abdi Alatif and 1424. So this oil is carbon. They been knew about this stuff. Right? Now let's keep on going. Now we're going to go over here. And this is in a section on corpse medicine from Renaissance to Civil War, chief substance and uses. We're gonna drop down here. I'm just giving you bits and pieces in this book, but it's up for you to read it. We're gonna drop down here, and it says that, as we will see, for most earlier modern physicians, the key question about mummy was not should you eat people, but rather what sort of person should you eat. Across the period, there are 4 broad types of mummy, excepting for now the outrightly counterfeit forms to be examined in chapter 3. It says, 1 is mineral pitch. The second, the matter derived from embalmed Egyptian corpses. The third, the relatively recent bodies of travelers drowned by sandstorms in the Arabian deserts. And the fourth, flesh taken from fresh corpses, usually those executed felons, and ideally within about 3 days. Now, he says that one is called mineral pitch. Now, this is what they're talking about. Carbon. And you type in the word called pitch or tar. They have many different names for it. Tar is a dark brown or black liquid of hydrocarbons and free carbon. You see that? Okay? Tar can be produced from coal, wood, petroleum, or peat. Right? So this is your melanin. This is carbon. This is what's inside of you. And it's able to take on a liquid form, a solid form, and a gas form, a vapor. Okay? Now, let's keep on going. We're going to go here. This is in Society of Medicine. And it says here that, let's see here. I want to go here to, matter of fact, I want to go here. We're going to go right here. I want to go right here. I'm going to go right here to, right here. The Bloody Harvest, Sources of Human Body Parts. Egypt, 2000 BC. Okay. So I want to go here to the section on, now they're in Egypt, right? And I want to go right here. It says, now it's already been proven that the Egyptians were Negroes. Now it says that on one hand, there were those unmistakable and durable artifacts such as the pyramids, the Great Sphinx, and the monument of Cheops or Khufu. Anyone who has spent just a few moments among the most fragmentary relics of Egypt in the British Museum cannot help but wonder breathlessly at the sheer scale of a single severed arm or disembodied head. Egyptian architecture alone was enough to make some Europeans feel half-consciously insecure about their own technological powers, as when the pioneer Egyptologist John Greaves made a peculiarly tortuous effort to prove that even the greatest of the pyramid was in fact not as tall as the spear of St. Paul, which had itself been destroyed by lightning in 1561. Rather less grudgingly, the French Baron John Dumont, writing from Cairo in February 1691, spoke of those stately monuments, quote, stately monuments, which pronounced, quote, the ancient kings of Egypt, the most powerful monarchs in the universe. So he called the ancient Egyptians the most powerful monarchs in the universe. Okay, I'm going to go over here and we're going to drop down here. I want you to listen to this. See, we are biochemically different from them. It says, time and time again, by contrast, 17th century commentators marveled at the vanished art of Egyptian embalmers. Around 1672, down in the darkness of an Egyptian burial cavern, one European traveler gazed in wonder at, quote, that balm, which is now quite lost. It was, he noted, looking into the broken mummy, which he and his assistant had just violated, quote, black, hard, and shines like pitch, having much such a sweet, having much but having much such a smell, but more pleasant. There was certainly pressure to imitate the art of the ancient Egyptian, but as Louis Chief's apothecary or shopkeeper, Perry Pomet, ruefully confessed in 1694, all the best and costly efforts on the bodies of the honored dead had never staved off decay for longer than a mere 2 or 3 centuries, a bare fraction of 4,000 years, which some Egyptian mummies were thought to have endured. You see that? So he says that when they broke up the mummies, when they broke open the mummies, they saw a black, hard, and pitch. So the mummies were like this. When they broke open the mummy, when they unwrapped the mummy bandages, and they saw the body, it had this substance. It was still it had this. It was shining. Okay? It had a shine to it. Most bodies starts to deteriorate, starts to turn to ash and dust. But this dude is saying that he's opened up the mummy bandages. I mean, he's seeing that the bodies are black and hard and it's shining like pitch. Like pitch. Okay? Pitch. Tar and pitch. Alright? So like here. He said it's shining. It's hard and it's shining. You see that? That's shining. I'm giving you facts. Right here, like this. The pitch drop experiment approximately 230 billion times that of water. So let's click on this. Okay, so they did a experiment with this. Okay, but I want to keep on going. So now it goes on to say that even the legendary conqueror Alexander the Great, embalmed after his earlier death in the summer of 323 BC, began to weather badly after 300 or so years. By the time that the Roman Emperor Augustus came to view Alexander's body, a few years before the birth of Christ, it says, remarks Francis Bacon, so tender as Caesar, touching but the nose of it, defaced it. The difference between modern and ancient embalmers cannot be explained simply by the proverbial arid climate of North Africa. Here were real human beings whose flesh transmuted into a hard, shiny brown or black light stone pitch and having a good smell, offered an extraordinary suspended fragment of remotest antiquity. You see that? So we're gonna go right here. We're gonna go right here, and there's a man named Johann Michael Van Slev, right? And he says that sometime between 1672 and 1676, Van Sleb could be found dauntlessly probing the darkness and most morbid caverns of the Egyptian deserts. He tells of French explorers scaling the Great Sphinx with rope ladders and finding its head to be hollow, though predictably filled up with sand, and the stark plains of death spread out across the desert. It says, thick upon a boundless champaign, even and covered over with sand, where neither trees, nor grass, nor house, nor any such things is to be seen, and full of dry bones of arms, legs, and feet, and heads, of scattered pieces of wood, of coffin, and of little idols, marked before and behind with hieroglyphic letters. We're going to drop down here. It says that despite this, and despite suffering from a quite severe fever, Van Sleb more than once had himself lured down on a rope into the mummy's pit of whales of Saqqara. Right? So now they're in the tombs, right? They're in the tombs, and it says here that they are breaking open the coffins and they are unwrapping the bodies. Okay? Van Sleb and his comrades are undeterred by either the shadows of death, the occasional fetid air which snuffs their candles, and even the ugly bats exceeding a foot in length. It says here that he is rewarded not only by his detailed observations, but by assorted pieces of plunder, including one stone coffin of about 800 weight, and another made of 40 cloth glued or pasted together in thickness, which are not in the least rotten. In a neat and balm of relation between time and vanity, a mummy's head bandage, on which the countenance of that person was represented in gold, is removed to reveal nothing of the face remaining, which is commonly reduced to ashes. Clearly, European reverence for Egypt could have ironic consequences. It says it did not guard these relics against vandalism or theft. At the same time, it was significant that they were thought worth stealing. Similarly, for some, it was only this true mummy of the pharaohs. Listen to this. Similarly, for some, it was only this, quote, true mummy of the pharaohs which was worth eating. Van Sleb himself was of this opinion, and others, including Samuel Pouchard, the compiler of Renaissance travel narratives, agrees with him. So, when people say, well, how come there are no pharaohs inside the tombs? Where are the bodies at? This is their answer right here. They're telling you that they ate the bodies. Similarly, for some, if only this true mummy of the pharaohs, which was worth eating. This, quote, true mummy was not only a costly, effective medical agent. In certain literary passages of the 17th century, it indeed assumed that general aura of the sacred or magical, more usually reserved for the saintly relics of Catholicism. So, they're telling you right here that they ate the pharaohs' bodies. It says here that for Renaissance Christians, the great hypnotizing expanse of time, lying like deserts of vast eternity between themselves and the pharaohs, considerably mitigated the potential taboos of Egyptian corpse medicine. Perhaps equally important was the fact that these ancient bodies had nothing like the smell or texture of ordinary dead flesh. Even their stylized shapes and decorations served to abstract them from those ordinary human beings strolling down Bucklersbury at the time of Shakespeare or Marble. You see that? Are you hearing what? Did you hear what I just read? So they were doing trade in 1565. Johann was searching fruitlessly for Egyptian mummies in the sands outside of Cairo. The natives, he wrote, seek these with all energy, for they sell them to the merchants of Cairo, by whom they are further sold. some of the Arabs eat them out of curiosity. Are you hearing this? Notice here the nice irony of Christians bringing a kind of casual cannibalism into the Arab world, as well as implying that mummy was not a routine medical agent for the Arabs at this point. Are you hearing this? It says that an anonymous Elizabethan tells of seeing, quote, the bodies of ancient men, not rotten but all whole, being daily unearthed from a Cairo pyramid. This kind of trade was still flourishing in 1586, when a British merchant apprentice, John Sanderson, illicitly obtained a mummy shipment of over 600 pounds in weight. In France, sometime in or before 1584, the influential poet Guglielmi wrote a stanza on global trade, referring to the balsamum from Egypt and from Syria mummy. Interestingly, this seems to refer to both Egyptian and sand mummies, the former being balsamum and the latter that from Syria. Are you hearing what I'm reading? You niggas not getting this at all. They just told you that the bodies, they were taking the bodies out of the pyramids in Egypt and eating them. Are you hearing this? Let me read it to you again. An anonymous Elizabethan tells of seeing, quote, the bodies of ancient men not rotten. So the bodies were not rotten. They didn't rot away, but all whole, being daily unearthed from a Cairo pyramid. So when you see people like this, like Zahi Hawass, going into the pyramids and saying they found the Egyptian tomb, they found the tomb of Osiris, where are the bodies at? Like they got Tutankhamun, his body's being floated around in the museums. I'm surprised they didn't eat that nigga. Now, how you gonna debunk this? So this ain't got. So when I'm reading to you here is with this Mummies, Cannibals, and Vampires, this author is telling you that the cannibals, vampires, and the cannibals and vampires are Europeans. He ain't say nothing about, oh, it's reptiles, it's greys. No, look. I got a video coming that's gonna debunk that reptiles and greys garbage. We finna knock that shit out the window. Cause you niggas don't here promote that garbage, that trash. No, you are living on earth with somebody who was eating your ass. Letting these white people trick you. Some reptiles and greys. If you all want to believe that, that's your belief. Go ahead. But I can show you when you go on the I don't really like to use Wikipedia for for a search. But when you type in reptile humanoid, okay, and you so-called trace the origin, I'm running out of time. When you type in reptile humanoid origin, whatever, right? It's gonna take you to David Icke, right? But this is facts, man. You can't debunk this, man. This book is entitled Mummies, Cannibals, and Vampires. I have just taken you full circle to prove my case in point. If I have to take this to court, I'll win my case. With that being said, peace, subscribe. Thank you very much for listening and watching.